Hi, good morning. This is Gene, KB9001 MWDX, medium wave DXing. And what is medium wave DXing? Well, medium wave DXing is listening to AM radio from all over the country and all over the world. I'm just sitting here with my cup of morning coffee, and I want to finally get to um, the subject matter of some other programs that I did talking about antennas, because I started out talking about antennas because I thought that was an important aspect of looking at how we draw radio signals into radios, and the object of having a radio is getting the signal to the radio so you can listen to it. Or just like, if you put up a satellite TV dish, the objective of an installer or technician is to get that signal to the antenna so it goes to your decoder box and goes to your TV so you can watch TV. So that is a technical objective. And I keep pushing AM radio because I think AM radio is very important, and I think in modern technology, because of course, we all have the cell phones in our hands, and that's a constant technology that's with us. But I want to say one important thing about cell phones. Cell phones are and is uh, a controlled technology. In other words, that cell phone in your hand can be shut down at any time. The information can be filtered any way that the people who pay to put content on there, not everybody pays to put content, but who put content on there and control it. And we know that, we've seen that from uh, platforms such as Twitter and Facebook, and the censorship that took place, say, through COVID. That's an important aspect to understand, that there was a control of information going on, but it's constant. It wasn't just COVID. There's a lot of control going on, and there has been for a long time. And there's also the broadcasters and the people who own the media outlets. They also feel a need to monitor and to censor content and to put out the content that they feel is relevant to a lot of different things, their political views, their ideologies, the news of the area that they broadcast in, things like that. So there's a lot of thought process that goes into content and how content is delivered to us and filtered to us. And I bring up AM radio because AM radio, for those of you who don't know it, is still a medium in which there are many stations out there who do broadcast and talk about information that is normally not talked about. And of course, Twitter's more open than it was 6 months ago, but they are not totally censored, and they still provide valid emergency information. And I want to explain that a little bit. And you would say, well, what's the difference between what you see on the internet and what's going on AM radio? There's a big difference. There are approximately 5,000 stations. I think the number is like 4,700 stations now that are licensed by the FCC, AM radio stations that are licensed to broadcast in the United States. Those stations are run by people. I think a few of them are automated, and they use a lot of automation now in the way of computers in their control rooms to broadcast. But there are still dedicated people who are there, and they're within their communities. An AM radio station is within its community, like WHO or WGN or WSM, KFAB, whoever they are, whoever that station happens to be, they are part of their community. If you hear a radio station in Omaha, Nebraska, New York City, Los Angeles, wherever they might be, that radio station is dedicated to their community. So they're dedicated to the safety and security of their communities. That's where you would go to get like really important information. There is, of course, in every city, National Weather Service if you needed to listen to weather information, emergency weather information. But there's good information being filtered through AM radio. I'll give you an example. Just last night, I happened to tune into George Norrie, Coast to Coast, and he was coming out of the Omaha station. He's syndicated. George Norrie is syndicated in many stations throughout the U.S. But when he came on, he immediately started giving us some very critical thought on the President's State of the Union last night, and it was fair, it was critical, and it made some very good points about what was real and what wasn't real. And that's the type of information that's filtering through AM radio stations right now. So I think that's important to remember. But with that said, that's why I'm talking AM radio. If there's a real emergency somewhere, there will be an AM radio station. It may not be particularly in your city. If your city was down and the power was down, by the way, most of those AM radio stations are backed up to the hilt with emergency generators and things like that. So they're probably not going to go off the air. Your internet will probably go down because the cell towers will be knocked down. Like we had a derecho go through Iowa a couple of years ago. We were out of power for 7 days straight. 7 days straight with no power. And in a hurricane zone, you have to consider how long you might be out of power. Well, guess what? You don't have to be in Florida to be in a hurricane, because we were in a small hurricane that wiped us out for 7 days in Iowa. So that should tell you everything you need to know about having an AM radio on hand. So if you can't get news within your local area, you can reach out to Omaha, Nebraska, or Kansas City, or Chicago, or whatever, and try and get something that you can listen to. And with the right AM radio, you can listen all over the country, in fact, all over the world, in some cases, if you have the right equipment and the right antenna. So let me get down to this real quick. I want to show you some radios here, and I'm going to go from the biggest to the smallest radio in the AM radio. And here we go. And this is the biggest radio in my collection, and I'll kind of give you a scan of what I have in hand. Let me get my coffee cup out of the way here. So we go from bigger to smaller, and all of these radios have one basic thing in common. They are all AM/FM radios. All of the radios that I have, from the biggest to the smallest, all possess the AM and FM band. The last two I'm going to show you also have shortwave band, but I'm going to warn you off about shortwave. I know that there's a lot of talk about shortwave having some importance, but shortwave has kind of degraded over the years, and shortwave is not what it is. You're not going to get as much news as you would, important news that you would from AM radio. There's just not the content out there, because a lot of big broadcasters have abandoned shortwave and they've gone on to the internet. So they're just not out there, and the news is not out there, and it's really kind of difficult to get information from shortwave. If any, you might get some religious shows. You might get some news if you happen to be lucky enough to be able to tune into a good station. But shortwave requires a radio and a really good antenna to get it, and an outside antenna is best. So, but the first two radios I'm going to talk about is this GE Super Radio. These were produced a few years ago, and they were specifically designed for people who were in AM radio. I have my little desk light that I put on here to light the dial, because this does not have a lighted dial on it. It has, the dial is dark and stays dark, and that's kind of difficult to deal with in night. So I bought this little book light, which worked really well to illuminate the dial so I can see it. And this radio, it has capability to put an external antenna, and also has the capability to put in got to get my little piggy bank out of the way there. An external antenna. So it has both an external antenna and an internal antenna. Now, one thing I want to mention to alleviate some of the confusion on antennas, these whip antennas on here, these metal whip antennas that you see, and they all have the same thing in common. All of these radios have a metal whip, right? So that metal whip is for FM. It is not for AM reception. That metal whip is for FM reception. It is not for AM reception. All of the radios that you see here, the other thing they have in common is they all have internal AM antennas, because an internal AM antenna is made of ferrite metal wrapped in copper wire, and they're put in the radios internally, and that is your antenna. That is actually your antenna. So this is a GE Super Radio, and it has super good reception. It has the one thing you're looking for with AM radios is you're looking for sensitivity to pick up the station and selectivity to isolate the station so you can hear it. These super radios, and I'm going to call this is a C-Crane CC Radio EP Pro. This is also like a super radio, and they are super sensitive and they're super selective, so you have to kind of work with them. The one thing I'm going to say about These two particular radios compared to this radio is, if you notice, this has digital tuning. And these are what they call analog. This last radio has analog tuning in it. So you have an actual analog dial, kind of like an old-fashioned radio. But I like the old-fashioned radio and the analog tuning because you can fine-tune the radio to exactly where you want it. Sometimes the digital tuning, that doesn't work. The next radio is a CC EP Pro. The EP Pro was specifically designed for people who are interested in AM DXing, listening to radio, AM radio at great distance. And this particular radio, it has a lot of different settings on it. It has AM, FM, and FM stereo. You can also adjust your bass and treble, and you can on the Super Radio too. By the way, it has the same things. It also has normal and wideband, normal and wideband, and this has wide and narrow too. And this wide and narrow is an important setting to isolating the frequency that you're listening to so you can hear it. In particular, the CC radio, they put a twin coil ferrite antenna, AM fine tuning. What this means is this gives you an ability. It has two antennas in it, so you can kind of tune those antennas, and it's inside. It's inside the radio. It's not the metal antenna. It's a ferrite core, which is inside behind this knob, is where it's at. So you have an internal AM antenna, and this gives you the ability to tune that. And also, this is I like this radio because it has a lighted dial, which is really cool. Because I'm getting older and I need to see that at nighttime. It's very helpful to me if I can figure out where I'm at. Though the analog dial, you kind of have more of an inference of where you're at. This is pretty accurate. The CC radio, or the Super Radio, I should say, is a little bit more difficult because it receives so much radio signal. It draws in radio signals that you'll have many radio signals packed on top of each other because it's such a sensitive radio that it's hard to find exactly. It's a little bit more difficult, so you have to play with it a little bit more. But once you get that reception locked in on this bigger radio, it's really good, really great radio. And the first two examples of the C Crane and the Super Radio, Super Radio, is they are what are referred to as a desktop radio. As you can see, it's by the scale. This is an extremely large radio, and this is about it's not half its size. It's a little bit smaller. It's probably a third smaller than the GE Super Radio. But the thing is, they both have a lot in common, and they're both really great radios. And they both have good reception. Now, these radios might be more difficult to handle and move around, say in an emergency, especially if you needed a bug-out bag, if you lived in a hurricane-prone area or an earthquake-prone area, or God forbid there should be some type of other natural or industrial disaster. You want to have something you can have in a go bag and move on quickly. So that's where we come to these smaller radios. By the way, I just want to mention that I have. Here's on my CC radio, I have an external antenna that I can use, and I can manipulate this. This is an AM loop antenna that I can use to manipulate and pull in a little bit more signal and get a better signal, and I use that with the CC radio. So this is an Eton radio, and Eton radio is essentially, I will call it a top-of-the-line radio. And it has a lot of bells and whistles to it. It has sideband on it. It has FM. It has airband. Though they might not be that critical listening to airband in an emergency, but it does have AM radio. And that AM radio, by the way, on the Eton is exceptional, very exceptional. Like I said, the only thing I don't love about it too much is the fact that, here, let me turn it on. Oh, and it's actually a little tricky to turn on sometimes. Let's see here. Any day now, sweetheart. Up and go figure. You know what's happening there? I have a low battery, and that's why you should have and that's why you should make sure. And then that's another thing. These are battery operated, and they do also have external power supplies on them, many of them. But that's why you should have extra batteries. So this one, I can't turn on at the moment. I apologize. Let's see here. And that's why this is, oh yeah, see the battery is gone. And I knew that I should have changed it out yesterday, but we can do another program on that. But so the Eton radio, it is digitally tuned, and I'm not real fond about that because that basically tells you that the radio is going to tell you exactly which frequency you should belong on, and I don't like that. I want to tell the radio what frequency I want it on, and that's why if you look here that.
And at the hour of our death, amen.
I tell the radio basically where to go.
This bill, I consider it to be one of the gold standards of immigration bills. In fact, Numbers USA has what we call fixed rate solutions. This is one of them. Senator Grassley's bill is one of them.
And you can kind of hear the quality. By the way, both of these radios have extremely large speakers on them, and they have a very good sound quality. But anyway, okay. So getting down to the last radio, and this is a new company made by a new company who's out there called Radio Oddity, and I saw this and I wanted it just because of the design. I thought the design was cool, and I really didn't know exactly what I was buying when I bought it. But when I got it here, it came with the radio, and it also came with this antenna. So it has an antenna that you can hook up to it, so you can get better shortwave reception. By the way, for your shortwave, let me also mention that on the shortwave radios, this is the metal antenna. Metal antenna is also for your shortwave receiving, and this is an exceptionally good radio on shortwave, and I was really shocked when I put it out. And what I did is I took it outside and I attached the antenna, and it's a long wire antenna. I don't know, it's about 10 or 15 feet long. I'm not sure exactly what the dimension is on that. But it worked really well, and I heard shortwave stations pretty well. But it also does great on the AM band, and it has all the shortwave, and I believe this one is charged up, and we can kind of see.
Bluetooth mode.
Okay, it's in Bluetooth mode right now, and it also is a Bluetooth speaker. The only thing I didn't like about this radio, and I think I'll do like a whole show on this radio to talk about. I'll do a review of it soon. Okay, so that'll teach me to charge up radios or put batteries in them in the future, so we don't miss a beat here. But the cool thing about this particular small radio is they kind of created this. Like I said, the one thing I didn't like about the Raddy Radio is it does not have an earphone jack, and I would have preferred that it have an earphone jack, because sometimes like this would be the perfect size to crawl in your sleeping bag at night and put a set of headphones on and listen in private if you didn't want anybody listening in, or didn't want to tell the whole world where you're at. So I think that would be like a really good idea to put a jack in here, earphone jack in the future for headphones. But anyhow, so the Raddy Radio has all the bands of shortwave on it. It has AM radio on it. It also acts as a Bluetooth speaker as well, which is Bluetooth, and you could put like an SD card in here, and you can listen to your favorite songs like if you had an SD card. The cool thing about this is, like, if you have a power source for where you can pick it up off a USB, that's how you charge this radio. Everything in the world seems to be going with the, I'm getting tangled up here, going with the USB type of charging, and it has a lithium battery in it, which is really cool.
I'm really bad at it.
There we go.
Adam. And sit in there. And I have a lot of experience. I love Radio Row.
I like this because it also has a lighted dial in it, and I think this would be ideal if it had the lighted dial.
20 times in a Radio Row week, a person will come up to me of a varying level of exuberance.
If it had a lighted dial and an earphone jack, this would be the ideal radio. In fact, I will probably buy one of these, another one of these, if they ever come out with a.
And I don't know who this person is.
If they ever come out with a radio with an earphone jack in it, I will repurchase this radio again, because it's pretty reasonable. I think I've seen them run from about $30 up to about $50, which I think $50. Let me untangle this here. love the hobby, hate the wires. I think I would, like I said, I would definitely love to buy another one of these radios if it had the earphone jack in it. That's very important to me. And it has multiple ways to charge it. So if you had a charging station set up, say with this battery is small enough, if you had battery pack powered by or temporary power pack powered by like a solar panel, and they have a lot of those, that could be charged off of this very easily. So if you couple the solar power charger with this, it would be wonderful. But I really would like to see that earphone jack. And again, this is hang on, because I have the see if I can unplug this a little bit now. Maybe we have enough of a charge that I can. There we go. Let's take that off there and make it more maneuverable. And it comes with the strap, as you can see. I love the strap because I can hang it up in the shower in the morning or near me in the shower, and I can listen to it in the morning. Let's see if we have a little bit of a charge here.
Radio. It was some quarterback who had played it. Whatever.
You kind of get an idea of how good the reception is, and it has really exceptional reception.
376. That's 515-644-8376. Experience the taste of England at the Royal Mile, Des Moines' original beer bar.
The dark and the Chinese have now banned those episodes.
Yeah, just really exceptional reception. And that's for daytime. Okay, so that's kind of it in a nutshell. I tried to give you like an overview of some of the bigger, more complicated radios, and I also tried to show you some of the smaller radios. And I'm going to do another show. In fact, I'll do another show about like the smaller backpack radios. I like to get that Eton up and running, so you can kind of see what that's about, and you can look at the difference between that digital tuning and analog tuning, and why I think the analog tuning and the analog type dials are better than the digital side. But anyhow, took up a lot of your time. I didn't want to make these long shows. I want to make them something where you can, watch these shorts and not take up a lot of your time, because, time is a commodity. So, okay, thanks. This is Gene from Listening In. I appreciate you taking the time. Thanks.